The coffee pot still hissed as my phone lit up with one group text from my 3 children. Love you. Still, I didn't smile. Just stirred the cream like I'd stirred every unthanked sacrifice. As the bitterness rose, it smelled like the dinners, the debts, and the decades they never remembered. The same children I raised with silence now sent love like a receipt. That's when I replied, calm and clean. For questions about the estate, contact Thomas Rowe. Because on Mother's Day, I stopped being a mother by duty and chose peace by name. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Evelyn stirred before the sun crested the hills. A pale gray light seeped through the curtains, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Her house, her once bustling, laughter-filled home, was still. No voices, no thudding of feet, just the groan of old wood settling beneath time and silence. It was Mother's Day. She rose without ceremony, feet finding slippers out of muscle memory. Down the hall, the framed photos lining the walls seemed to look away, captured moments from another life, one where she mattered. The kitchen was tidy, too tidy. The ceramic fruit bowl was full. The fridge hummed like a bored machine. She turned on the coffee maker and leaned against the counter, arms crossed, waiting for the drip, drip, drip. She didn't expect a call from Henry. He was always slammed around May with real estate closings. Rachel might send flowers, she often did. But Evelyn didn't expect much more. The twins, maybe a tag on a family Facebook post, if they remembered. She tapped her phone. One new message. A group text. Happy Mother's Day, love you. That was it. No names, no voices, no calls. Just a collective digital pat on the head, like tossing scraps to a stray dog that once belonged but now wandered too far. She stared at it. Her thumb hovered, then fell. If you have questions about the estate, contact Thomas Rowe. She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. A long pause. Then, Margot. You finally did it? Evelyn's hand trembled slightly as she set the phone down. She let the coffee steep longer than usual. It tasted bitter today. She carried the mug to the window and stood in the silence, watching a cardinal peck at the bird feeder she had filled yesterday. Its crimson feathers flashed like a warning flare against the overcast sky. Her phone buzzed again. Margot. Evelyn, she replied without sitting down. Evelyn, not yet, but I'm going to. The silence that followed wasn't from her phone. It was from inside her, like a cathedral emptied of prayer. A final hollowing out. She walked to the small drawer beneath the kitchen calendar, the drawer she hadn't opened in 2 years. Inside, a folder marked Row T lay atop old tax documents and expired warranties. She pulled it out and laid it flat on the table. The first page was a copy of the trust amendment, her amendment. The one that had caused the last fight. The one that made Rachel cry and Henry call her manipulative. The one Margot begged her to reconsider because it's not about the money, Mom. It's about the message. Exactly. Evelyn folded her arms over her chest and stared at the document like it might move. She'd meant to change it after Arthur died. She'd meant to make it right. But every time she came close, they'd reel her back in with some fragile, flickering illusion of love. A visit, a phone call, a shared dinner that felt warm, if only for a moment. But now they didn't even bother pretending. The bird feeder rocked slightly in the wind, seeds spilling onto the deck like confetti at a celebration no one showed up for. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again. Same number. No voicemail. She frowned. Picked it up. A text this time. Unknown. You're not as alone as you think. Call me. Her pulse quickened. She stared at the text, her thumb frozen in mid-air. Was this one of them? A prank? A threat? Or something else? She tapped the screen, dialed. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then someone picked up. Evelyn, said a man's voice, deep and familiar. It's time. The photo album was heavier than she remembered. Evelyn sat cross-legged on the living room rug, the one she'd vacuumed so often the fibers had gone thin near the corners. Morning light cut through the blinds, slicing the floor into pale stripes. as she opened the cracked leather cover and flipped past the baby pictures. She wasn't looking for innocence. She was looking for patterns. There she was, smiling in every frame. Always smiling. Birthday parties, college move-ins, Thanksgiving mornings, graduations. In each photo, Evelyn held something, a frosted cake balanced on one hand while Claire leaned in, blowing out candles, car keys in a clenched fist as Tess rolled her eyes, a duffel bag slung low on one shoulder, suitcases gripped tight at the curb, waiting for Caleb's delayed flight, paper grocery bags stretching her arms, while one of them fumbled with a phone in the background. She touched one of the photos lightly. Her fingers rested on her own face, an open-mouthed grin frozen in glossy stillness, and still, her other hand carried a load. Evelyn shut the album halfway and exhaled through her nose. It wasn't sadness. It was something tighter, something made of inventory and hindsight. Claire had never come by without a favor attached. Not once. Sometimes it was something small. Help addressing wedding invitations, watching the dog, ironing a last-minute blouse. Other times it was bigger. Help navigating an ugly custody battle with her second husband, someone to meet the plumber during an emergency, a weekend to reset. Tess was worse. Her love always arrived carrying crisis. Emotional explosions in parking lots, calls at 2 a.m., rent that ran out by the 22nd every month. Evelyn had fronted deposits, driven across state lines, paid off a title loan Tess swore she never took out. Each time Tess cried and said she was so sorry, but the emergencies never stopped coming. Caleb had been the easiest to lose because he was polite, distant. His texts were neat and transactional, his birthday calls precisely 2 minutes long. Sending something soon, he'd always say. Evelyn learned that soon meant never, but it took her longer than it should have. She rose, her knees groaning as she stood. Walked to the kitchen, pulled out a clean yellow notepad, and uncapped a pen. List of favors. Last 5 years. She began with the big ones. Paid off Tess's car loan, $7,800. Flew to Boston to babysit Claire's boys for a week. Covered 2 months of Claire's mortgage during her divorce. Loaned Caleb $5,000 for his startup. No updates since. Let Tess move in for 4 months after the rehab stint. Then the smaller ones came, fast and overlapping. Edited Claire's grant application. Shipped Caleb a winter coat after he forgot his. Helped Tess write her apology letter to the HOA lent out the guest room, the car, her name, her quiet, her time. She reached line 31 before the pen ran dry. She blinked. That seemed like a number you should see on a CVS receipt, not a tally of your own eroded boundaries. She clicked another pen and stared at the blank line below. Nothing else came. There were no favors left to name that weren't repeats, just a hollow realization. This wasn't giving. This was indenture disguised as motherhood. Evelyn folded the notepad closed and laid her hand on top of it. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she stood, walked to the fireplace, and opened the small brass box where Arthur used to keep his pipe lighters. She struck a match, lit the edge of the notepad. The pages curled inward, blackened, and flared in an orange hiss before she dropped them into the cold hearth. It wasn't rage, not exactly. It was an exorcism. The smoke rose in ribbons and disappeared. Just then, her phone buzzed across the counter. Another message. No name. Unknown. The will isn't the only thing they've lied to you about. Evelyn's breath caught. She typed slowly. Evelyn. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Then nothing. She stared, waited, and then another buzz. Unknown. I'm outside. Evelyn didn't open the door. Not right away. She stood just behind the curtain, holding her breath, heart ticking in her ears like a timepiece in a velvet box. Outside, the porch bathed in sunlight. No movement, no footsteps. Just her bird feeders swinging lazily in the breeze, as if nothing had happened. Maybe it was a prank, or maybe one of the kids trying to guilt her back into the fold. She waited 3 more minutes, then 5. Still nothing. Her phone buzzed again. Claire. Thanks, Mom. That banana bread hit the spot last time. Hope you're having a sweet day. Another buzz. Tess. Hope you're relaxing. You deserve it. Let me know if you want company. She stared at the screen, expression unreadable. Then she locked it, set it face down, and walked out back. By noon, the sun had chased off the early chill. Evelyn was on her knees in the grass, work gloves on, elbow deep in pine and nails. The old birdhouse had rotted in one corner. Ants, moisture, time. She'd pulled it down and taken it apart piece by piece, laying the wood out like evidence on a crime scene table. There was something sacred about the disassembly, like rewriting a memory. Each rusty screw she pried loose came with a little mental snap. Tess's tantrum outside Walgreens when Evelyn refused to co-sign another lease. Claire's smirk when Evelyn offered to help with groceries instead of cash. Caleb's stiff half-hugs at Christmas, his eyes already on his phone. She sawed the soft wood with methodical hands, cut new panels from the fresh pine she'd picked up last spring but never used. Measured twice, aligned carefully, no shortcuts this time. She was sanding the front panel when she heard it. The knock was light, hesitant, not family. She stood slowly, wiping her hands on her jeans, opened the door just as Jordan was raising their hand again. They smiled, sheepish, holding out a loaf of something wrapped in foil. "Didn't mean to scare you," they said. "You didn't answer your phone, so I figured I'd check in." Evelyn blinked. "Jordan." They nodded. "Still me." She stepped aside without thinking, the smell of banana and cinnamon trailing them in. They sat on the porch, sunlight dappled through the willow tree overhead. The bread was warm, moist, not too sweet. Evelyn hadn't eaten anything all day. Jordan talked about their community garden project, about the cat who'd adopted them, about the weird dream they had last week where the sun cracked open like an egg and everyone just kept going to work like nothing happened. Evelyn laughed, quiet but genuine. Hours passed like minutes. By the time the shadows stretched across the yard, she'd finished 2 slices and most of a thermos of coffee. Then came the lull. Jordan leaned back in the chair, elbows on knees. "You okay?" Evelyn looked out toward the birdhouse scraps on the workbench. "You ever think silence can be an answer?" Jordan nodded without hesitation. "It's the clearest one most people ignore." Evelyn smiled, lips pressed together, gaze far away. "Good," she said softly, "because I'm about to speak it loud." Inside, dusk gathered along the edges of the ceiling. The rooms cooled. She walked Jordan to the door, hugged them tightly, longer than usual. Not the way she hugged family, all conditional and quick. This one lingered. When she closed the door behind them, she didn't feel empty. She felt defined. Back in the kitchen, the phone buzzed once more. Rachel. "Hey Mom, we're thinking of swinging by this weekend. You around?" No emoji. No apology. Evelyn didn't respond. She let the screen dim and picked up her tools again. The birdhouse wouldn't build itself. She sanded the final edge, then paused, something catching her eye. Out in the street, a black sedan slowed in front of her driveway. No plates, no logo. It didn't stop, just crawled by. But Evelyn knew cars. She knew pace, she knew presence, and whoever was inside wasn't lost. The laptop's camera light blinked on like an unblinking eye. Evelyn adjusted her reading glasses, leaned back in her chair, and waited for the gallery of faces to assemble. A flicker, then 3 squares appeared. 3 adult children arranged like a committee. Claire in her spotless home office, framed degrees glowing faintly behind her. Tess in a car, phone propped on the steering wheel, eyes darting. Caleb in some anonymous Airbnb, headphones on, pretending calm. They all smiled at once, too brightly, too rehearsed. "Hi, Mom," Claire said, voice sugar-coated, every syllable shaped for diplomacy. "We've sensed a little tension lately." Evelyn's mouth curved slightly. "You didn't sense I was done?" A pause. Even over Wi-Fi, silence had weight. Tess cleared her throat. "Mom, look, about last time." "You mean when you called me manipulative?" Evelyn said. "Or when you slammed the door?" Tess blinked. "I was just venting." Claire jumped in, tone brittle. "We all get emotional. It's been a hard year for everyone." Caleb gave his trademark neutral smile, the kind that belonged more to customer service than family. "We know you love us, Mom. You always do." Evelyn held his gaze for a long second. "That was a mistake." The sentence landed like glass shattering on tile. Nobody moved. Claire's smile faltered. I don't understand what you're doing." We're just trying to reconnect. No, Evelyn said. You're trying to renegotiate. Tess's jaw dropped. Excuse me? Your love, Evelyn said evenly. It's always had terms. The moment I stopped paying them, you called it a misunderstanding. Caleb looked off-screen, rubbing his forehead. This is unnecessary. Evelyn leaned forward slightly. What's unnecessary is pretending you three are worried about me. You're worried about the paper trail. Claire inhaled sharply. That's not fair. Fair, Evelyn repeated softly, tasting the word. Do you know how many times I covered your mistakes because I thought fairness didn't apply to mothers? No one answered. The digital quiet was so complete, she could hear the faint echo of her own breath feeding back through the speakers. She straightened her glasses. Let me make something clear. I'm not angry. Anger still wants something from you. I don't. Tess's eyes glistened. Mom, please, this isn't you. Evelyn smiled faintly. You're right. It's the me you raised to be silent, learning how to speak. For a moment, none of them looked directly at her. They shifted, adjusted, blinked at the brightness of their own reflections. Claire forced a laugh that cracked mid-note. Okay, so this is symbolic. Fine. You needed to make a point. Evelyn tilted her head. It's not a point, dear. It's a boundary. Caleb sighed, muting himself long enough to whisper something to someone off-screen. Then came back with that tired grin again. Well, we'll talk soon. I have another call. Of course you do, Evelyn said. The screen flickered as Tess reached for her phone, ending the feed abruptly. Claire lingered, eyes sharp and wet. Mom, you're making a mistake you can't undo. I already did that once, Evelyn replied, when I mistook proximity for love. Claire swallowed. Dad would never, your father, Evelyn said, voice low and controlled, taught me the value of pretending. I'm done honoring that. The connection stuttered. Claire froze mid-blink, her digital image pixelating, breaking apart into tiny squares before vanishing. Evelyn sat alone with her own reflection in the black screen. For a moment, she almost didn't recognize herself, the calm lines around her mouth, the certainty in her eyes. Then a new window popped up. Incoming call. Unknown. Her heart tightened. Same number as before. She hovered the cursor over accept. Outside, through the window, the black sedan idled at the curb. The spring air outside the law office felt cleaner than it should have, like it had been filtered through something Evelyn couldn't name. Clarity, maybe? Or closure. She stepped out of her car and paused, letting the breeze lift the collar of her coat. Tulips bowed along the sidewalk in quiet rows, the same deep red as the ones Arthur used to plant without asking where she'd wanted them. This year, she'd dug up every last bulb. The office building was modest, a converted Victorian just off Main. White siding faded but dignified. Evelyn climbed the steps slowly, not from hesitation but ceremony. She'd imagined this day for years. Now it had arrived without fanfare, without trembling, just steady, deliberate purpose. Inside, Thomas Rowe's office smelled faintly of leather and lemon polish. A classic space, walnut trim, tall windows, soft ticking of a brass clock overhead. He stood when she entered. Evelyn, he said warmly. Right on time. She gave a nod. Always am. Just didn't realize it until now. Thomas motioned to a seat. I've got everything prepped. Drafts exactly as you asked. He handed her the folder. Thick, crisp pages, her name at the top in a firm serif font. She didn't skim. She'd already read it, twice, when he'd sent the final copy for approval. But there was something sacred about holding it in her own hands. She flipped to the signature page. You don't want to review it one more time, Thomas asked. I don't want to relive it, she said. Then uncapped the pen. She signed in one clean, practiced motion. Evelyn M. Wallace, no hesitation. No flourish. Thomas collected the folder carefully, hands precise. We'll notarize and record it today. Originals filed here, and as requested, a certified copy for your safe. And the letter? She asked. He slid a smaller envelope across the desk. Handwritten, sealed. Your words, no edits. Evelyn took it, running her finger along the edge like she was tracing the seam of an old wound. Jordan knows none of this, Thomas said gently, and I'd like to keep it that way. He raised a brow. You trust them to do right with it. I trust them not to expect it, Evelyn said. That's the difference. Thomas exhaled slowly. You're aware this will almost certainly be contested. I'm counting on it. She slipped the envelope into her handbag, next to her gloves and a small bottle of aspirin, then stood. Evelyn. Thomas hesitated. Are you sure? She turned to face him fully. No, she said. I'm not sure. He frowned. I'm not sure of how they'll take it. I'm not sure who'll scream the loudest, or whether any of them will finally understand. She tucked a stray strand of silver hair behind her ear. But I'm not trying to be sure. She smiled. It was clean, sharp. I'm certain. At home, the late afternoon light draped the foyer in gold. Evelyn moved with unhurried focus. Upstairs, she unlocked the safe Arthur had installed back when the kids were little. Just in case, he'd said. But over the years, it had held less of value and more of burden. Old tax returns, expired insurance policies, forgotten jewelry too guilt-ridden to sell. She cleared it all out. The folder went in first, the envelope on top. She added the receipts. The updated statement of beneficiaries, a certified death certificate for Arthur, and, after a moment's pause, a black and white photo of her and Jordan planting tomatoes in her backyard. They were both mid-laugh, caught unaware. She shut the safe and spun the dial. Tidy. Final. The house had never felt quieter. Not hollow, but still, like a theater just before the curtain goes up. In the kitchen, her phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown. Check the mailbox. She stared at the screen, then moved. At the curb, the mailbox door hung slightly ajar. She hadn't gotten mail that morning. Evelyn reached inside. One manila envelope, no stamp, no return address. Inside, a single photo, black and white, slightly grainy. Her, Jordan, on the porch last week, smiling, eating banana bread. Written across the bottom in neat, all-caps block letters, "Do you really trust them?" Evelyn looked up. The black sedan wasn't on the street, but she felt watched anyway. The cafe Claire picked was the kind of place that served grapefruit slices in porcelain ramekins and called it an appetizer. Whitewashed walls, hanging ferns, exposed beams reclaimed from some old barn made to look like charm. Servers moved like ballerinas between tables, balancing lattes with hearts foamed into them. Evelyn sat in a sun-drenched corner by the window, napkin folded neatly across her lap, watching Claire approach through the glass. Even her daughter's walk was curated, heels clicking like punctuation, sunglasses too large, smile too bright. Claire slid into the seat across from her, smoothing her dress like she was on a talk show. "You look great, Mom. That blouse really suits you." Evelyn didn't look down at the blouse. She already knew what she was wearing: pale blue silk, crisp collar, the one Claire had once called dated, before borrowing it 2 months later. "Thank you," Evelyn said. The server arrived, and Claire ordered without glancing at the menu. Avocado toast, extra chili flakes, side of arugula, no dressing. Evelyn asked for black coffee and nothing else. Claire smiled. "Still avoiding carbs?" "Still avoiding performance," Evelyn said. Claire tilted her head. What does that mean? But Evelyn only smiled. They talked about neutral things, weather, traffic, a mutual acquaintance who'd bought a boat and regretted it. Claire laughed at her own anecdotes a little too loudly, a little too often. Evelyn nodded in all the right places, but never laughed once. When the food came, Claire stabbed at the toast like she was angry with it. Then, "So, are we good?" Evelyn folded her hands on the table. "Claire, we were never bad. We were just never anything real." Claire blinked. "What are you talking about?" Evelyn leaned forward, her voice gentle but solid. "You don't know me. You know the function I served. The availability, the yeses, the guilt-wrapped gifts." Claire gave a tight laugh. "Okay, well, that's dramatic." "Is it?" Evelyn asked. "Or is it just inconvenient?" Claire dropped her fork. It clanged against the plate, loud enough to make the server glance over. "Look, if this is about the will—" "It's not," Evelyn interrupted. "It's about the years, all of them." Claire leaned back, arms crossed. "So what? This is your big finale. You're cutting everyone off and playing the victim." "I'm not cutting anyone off," Evelyn said. "I'm just finally stepping out of the role you cast me in. And I'm not playing the victim. I was the volunteer." Silence stretched. Claire stared at her, mouth parted, searching for a script that would work. Evelyn dropped a 20 on the table and stood. Claire looked stunned. You're leaving? I already left, Evelyn said. You're just noticing now. She walked out without another word, the bell above the cafe door chiming behind her like applause. The sidewalk felt different, like the ground had stopped tilting. Evelyn moved through the afternoon crowd without hurrying, without glancing back. Her purse was light, her shoulders lighter. Margot was waiting at the edge of the park, wearing her wide straw hat again, arms crossed, a tote bag full of mulch samples at her feet. Well, she asked. She ordered avocado toast and tried to charm me with compliments. Margot snorted. Textbook. Evelyn sat beside her on the bench, hands in her lap, watching a toddler chase pigeons across the brick walkway. Margot pulled out a mason jar of iced tea and handed it over. The worst part of narcissism, she said, is the performance of affection. That whole see how kind I'm being act. It's not love, it's theater. Evelyn took a sip. She asked if we were good. And? I told her we were never real. Margot let out a low whistle. That'll leave a mark. No, Evelyn said. It'll leave a silence. One she might finally have to hear. They sat in the sun until the shadows shifted. Evelyn didn't speak again for a long time. When she did, her voice was quiet. She's going to come after it, you know. The will. All of them will. Margot looked at her, unsmiling. Let them. Evelyn turned to her. Someone's watching me. I don't know who. I don't think it's them. Margot didn't blink. Then it's someone who thinks they know you. Evelyn's phone buzzed in her purse. Another anonymous message. This time, you made your move. Now I'll make mine. The envelope arrived via courier, hand-delivered, not mailed. Evelyn read it standing by the kitchen sink, a half-eaten piece of toast cooling beside her. Her fingers didn't shake. Her breath didn't hitch. She just read it once, then again, and let out a small exhale through her nose. Petition for evaluation of mental capacity. Filed by Caleb M. Wallace. Below that, a list of phrases that tried to sound concerned. Potential undue influence, rapid personality changes, erratic financial decisions. She folded the document neatly and placed it beside the coffee pot. The scent of fresh grounds no longer comforted her like it used to, but today it felt like ritual. She poured a cup, black and hot, and sipped it slow. Then she called Thomas. He's making his move, she said. Thomas was silent on the other end for a long beat. It won't hold, but we'll treat it seriously. I expect nothing less, she replied. The court-assigned evaluator arrived 5 days later. Neutral blazer, clipboard in hand, polite but not warm, a woman in her 40s, eyes sharp with practiced detachment. Evelyn welcomed her with lemon water and a steady voice. They began in the sunroom. Name, date, current president, series of recall exercises, mental arithmetic, pattern recognition, a logic puzzle involving colored blocks. Halfway through, the evaluator looked up and said, You're unusually calm about this. Evelyn smiled faintly. Being underestimated is restful, once you stop taking it personally. Later, they moved to more subjective questions. Can you tell me why your children believe you're no longer fit to manage your affairs? Evelyn sipped her water before answering. Because I stopped making my affairs theirs. The evaluator's pen stilled for a second. 3 interviews, 2 written assessments. A cognitive battery Evelyn called a bit condescending but fun. On the final day, the evaluator stood in the foyer, pulling on her coat, and looked Evelyn square in the eye. You're sharper than most of my staff, she said. Evelyn gave her a look of amused defiance. Then let's hope your staff doesn't handle my file. The court dismissed Caleb's petition within a week. No merit, no evidence, no grounds for reconsideration. Thomas called her from his office, his voice lined with something like satisfaction. That was embarrassingly flimsy, almost insulting, frankly. Evelyn was at her workbench, staining the rebuilt birdhouse with a cedar finish. She spoke without pausing. That's how you know it was his idea. You want to sue for damages? Thomas asked. No, she said. He wanted attention. Let him choke on the silence. That evening, Evelyn updated her living trust. Thomas handled the legal end, but she insisted on writing the changes by hand first. copying them from one clean draft to another like scripture. The new document named 2 trustees, Jordan Leary and Evelyn M. Wallace. That was it. No contingents, no riders, no loopholes. Clean. Final. She sealed the document, tucked it into the safe beside the original will, and pressed the door shut with the same care she might close a child's bedroom door. Quiet, gentle, without apology. Jordan came by later that week with a fresh tin of loose-leaf tea and news about a stray cat that had finally adopted them. They found Evelyn in the backyard, wearing a bandana and kneeling in the dirt, pruning the first signs of spring from her rose garden. "Everything okay?" Jordan asked. Evelyn straightened up, brushing soil from her knees. Better than ever, Jordan narrowed their eyes, as if trying to read beneath the surface. "You'd tell me if it wasn't, right?" "I'd tell you if it needed to be," she said. Then after a pause, "You're the first person who didn't try to fix me when I got quiet. That's why you'll be the one who hears me if I ever really fall apart." Jordan looked surprised, moved. But they didn't say anything, just nodded slowly. They sat together on the porch after that, drinking the tea and watching the neighbor's dog try to herd a group of pigeons into the bushes. At one point, Evelyn said, "Do you think some people get angry because they know you finally saw them clearly?" Jordan replied, "I think they get angrier when they realize they taught you how." That night, Evelyn received another envelope, not in the mailbox this time. On the windowsill, inside, a flash drive, labeled in thick black marker, Arthur's final recording. He didn't knock. Just stood there, shifting his weight like a boy outside the principal's office, hands in the pockets of a jacket that looked too new for the season. His car idled behind him, parked crooked at the curb. No black sedan this time, just Caleb, and all the pieces of him Evelyn no longer felt responsible for. She opened the door, but only halfway. No invitation. "Just an allowance. I got scared," he said. Evelyn didn't move. "I shouldn't have done that." He glanced down at the porch boards, then back at her. "The petition, I mean, the letters, the lawyer stuff. It was a bad call." Still, she said nothing. He tried again. "I was afraid you were changing too fast, that someone was pushing you, that you'd regret." Her eyes flicked up sharply. He stopped mid-sentence. There it was, the old habit of rewriting concern as control, dressing fear up as loyalty. "I know," he muttered. "That sounds like an excuse." Silence settled between them. Not angry, not urgent, just complete. "I thought if I pressed pause, we could talk. Really talk. But then Tess made it worse, and Claire? Well, Claire's always good at making it about something else. I guess I just..." He stopped again, rubbed a hand over his face. "I don't know. I thought you'd be mad, and now you're not, and that's worse somehow." Evelyn tilted her head. "Why?" "Because it means you've already let go." She didn't correct him. Caleb shuffled once more. "So, are we good now?" Evelyn exhaled slowly, not from exhaustion, from the burden of certainty. "No," she said. "We're finished." A twitch of surprise crossed his face, like he thought the apology would buy her back, like this was retail, she continued calmly. "That's not a punishment, it's a boundary, and for the first time in your life, you're going to have to sit with it." He opened his mouth, then closed it. His hands fidgeted, wanting something to hold. His phone, a mug, a hug. Something to distract from the fact that nothing in this moment was owed to him. Evelyn looked at the sky over his shoulder, clear, unapologetic. "Go home, Caleb." She closed the door, gently, not a slam, just the soft, final snick of separation. Margot was on the porch swing when Evelyn stepped out back, one hand around her tea, the other tugging at a weed growing between the flagstones. "Did he bring flowers?" she asked without turning. "Nope." "Did he cry?" "No." "Then I'm impressed." Evelyn sat beside her, the swing creaking just slightly. "He said he was scared." Margot sipped. "Good. Fear makes people honest." "He asked if we were good now." Margot turned to her, smiling. "And?" "I told him we're finished." Margot grinned. "You didn't even slam the door. That's evolution." They sat in companionable silence, dusk settling in around them like old wallpaper. The rose garden was beginning to bloom again, sharp thorns, full color. A breeze passed, lifting the edges of Evelyn's cardigan. In her chest, a quiet calm had replaced the constant ache she'd carried for years. Not peace, exactly, but something more useful: resolve. Then Evelyn's phone buzzed on the patio table. A single message, no contact, no signature. You should really watch the recording. Arthur didn't die the way they said. Jordan opened the door wearing an apron dusted with flour and a grin that wasn't trying to fix anything. The kind of welcome that didn't hinge on past favors or future debts. Evelyn held up a bottle of red. "It's not fancy," she said, "but it's honest." Jordan stepped aside. "That's all I ever ask of dinner." Inside, the apartment smelled of garlic and basil, the kind of warmth you can't fake. The table was set with mismatched dishes, candles that didn't match, and a little folded napkin at her place. "Pasta," Jordan announced, "because it's impossible to cry into spaghetti and still look cool." Evelyn laughed. Not polite. Real? They talked for hours, about the neighbor who played trombone too late at night, about how Jordan once built a birdhouse that collapsed the moment it rained, about childhood Halloween costumes, bad bosses, good dogs, the kind of conversation where time didn't press its thumb into your back. It just floated. Easy. At one point, Jordan asked softly, "What was Arthur like? Before?" Evelyn didn't ask before what. She stared into her glass for a moment, then said, "He loved control more than connection, but he was charming enough that you missed the difference for a while." Jordan nodded. No judgment, no rush. "Still," Evelyn said, "he used to hum while he painted the porch. Same 3 songs every time. I hated them, and now I miss them." She blinked once, hard. The wine had opened something tender, but not raw. Just soft enough to touch without flinching. Jordan stirred the pasta absently. "You've been more mother to me than anyone I've ever known." Evelyn looked up sharply. Not because it was surprising, but because it was the one sentence she didn't realize she needed to hear out loud. She didn't cry, not fully. But her eyes welled, and her voice caught when she said, "You remembered. That's all it took." The city hummed outside as she walked to her car later that night. A spring wind danced through the alleyways, full of faint music from someone's open window. Her coat hung loose around her, and for the first time in years, her chest didn't feel like it was hosting a secret she couldn't name. At home, the porch light flickered once before settling. The silence inside was welcoming, not empty. She poured the last inch of wine into a tumbler, sat on the edge of her bed, and pulled out her phone. One by one, she opened each group message thread. Claire, Tess, Caleb. Years of requests, guilt, performances. The endless theater of obligation. She hovered her finger for a moment, then tapped. Delete. The screen went blank. Clean, unburdened. Evelyn sat still in the quiet. Then she stood, walked to the safe, and retrieved the flash drive. She plugged it into her laptop. A file blinked open. Arthur, final move. And before she could decide whether she was ready, Arthur's face appeared. Alive. She didn't watch the whole video. Not yet. She made it exactly 42 seconds in, just long enough to hear Arthur call her Evie, in that voice she used to mistake for devotion. The screen froze on his face, mid-sentence. He looked older than she remembered, but somehow more alive than she'd allowed him to be in her memory. It wasn't guilt that made her pause. It was something heavier, something like truth. She shut the laptop and walked away. In the morning, she printed the still frame from the video, the one where his face was caught between expression and explanation. She didn't know why she needed to see it, only that she didn't want to rewind again. She framed the photo and placed it on the windowsill in the hallway, not beside the family portraits, not in the living room where it could steal space. She didn't text the anonymous number, didn't ask for more. That thread had dangled in her life long enough. She let it go. In the garage, Evelyn laid out the foundation boards for a new dollhouse, not a replica of her old one. That had been for Tess, who'd called it weirdly controlling as a teenager and unsettlingly nostalgic as an adult. No, this one was something entirely different, smaller, more intentional. The dimensions were modest, but the lines were clean. Every piece would fit exactly as it was meant to. No hidden hinges, no trapdoors, just quiet, perfect space. She was finishing the side walls when Jordan arrived, sleeves rolled up, cheeks flushed from the wind. "You said you needed help with the roof?" Evelyn nodded, handing them a box of cedar shingles. "This one's going to someone who'll love it." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Already got someone in mind?" "I will," she said, "when I see them." They worked in tandem, side by side, the radio humming low behind them. For a moment, Evelyn imagined what it would have been like to build this when she was 30 or 50. But that thought passed quickly. The timing wasn't the miracle, the decision was. The following week, she boxed up the family scrapbooks, 3 of them, thick, dusted with gilt and tape residue. Her own handwriting labeling each year like it had meant something permanent. She drove them to the local history museum, where the archivist met her with gentle hands and a kind smile. "These are beautifully preserved," the woman said. "They're accurate," Evelyn replied. "Any family still living in town?" "Not anymore," the woman nodded without pushing. "Would you like to leave a name for the exhibit if we use them?" Evelyn thought for a moment. "No, let the pictures speak for themselves." Outside, the afternoon sun hit the sidewalk in clean lines. She felt no weight in her hands as she walked away. Margot stopped by later that evening with 2 bottles of sparkling water and a bar of lavender soap. She handed both to Evelyn like they were declarations. "I hear you've been giving away ghosts," she said. "I prefer calling it offloading heirlooms," Evelyn smiled. Margot settled into the porch swing with a sigh. "You framed his photo." "I did." "Did you forgive him?" "No," Evelyn said. "But I finally stopped waiting for him to earn it." They sat in the fading light, the dollhouse just visible through the window behind them, roof now fully finished. "That's the difference," Margot said eventually. "Between grief and release, one drags you down, the other lets you float." Evelyn didn't reply. She didn't need to. Because in that moment, she heard it. From inside the house, a faint voice, coming from the laptop. Arthur's voice, still playing. The message came in just after dawn. No punctuation, no emojis. Just 5 words, flat and familiar. "Can we please just talk?" "Claire." Evelyn didn't open it, didn't read it twice. She stared at it for exactly 8 seconds, then tapped delete and watched the screen go blank. No response, no explanation, no more noise. She poured herself a cup of coffee and walked to the dining room table, where her journal lay open to a fresh page. The binding was cracked from use. The ink smelled faintly of resolve. She wrote, "Let silence do what guilt never could." Then beneath that, "Let absence speak where presence lied. Let me keep what they never wanted to understand." She capped the pen and closed the journal. Later that morning, Thomas called. "All the paperwork's officially filed," he said. "Trust finalized. Accounts locked. Backup copies secured. No one can contest what they can't access." Evelyn smiled into the receiver. "That's a nice sentence." "You earned it," he said. "Everything's finally yours again." Evelyn didn't reply right away. She looked around the house, not for threats, but for space. There it was, everywhere. By noon, she'd done something she hadn't in years. She called a local service and scheduled a cleaning, a deep one. Not because the house was dirty. Evelyn kept things neat out of habit. But because some corners still carried energy she didn't want to breathe anymore. "The carpets," she told the woman on the phone, "especially under the beds." She hung up and felt lighter. Like she'd just told someone a secret and they didn't flinch. On a whim, she drove into town. The boutique had a red coat in the window, tailored wool, not loud, but bold enough to be noticed. Evelyn hadn't bought herself anything red in years. Too showy, Arthur used to say. Red's for women who want to be seen. She tried it on. It fit perfectly across the shoulders. The clerk asked if she wanted a gift box. "No," Evelyn said. "I'm wearing it out." Outside, the wind pulled at the hem of her new coat like it wanted to dance with her. She walked past the bakery, the old post office, the corner where Arthur used to wait in the car, tapping the steering wheel if she took too long in the store. None of it touched her now. At the crosswalk, she spotted Jordan across the street, holding a paper bag of groceries in one hand and a dog leash in the other. The golden retriever beside them looked equally pleased to exist. Jordan waved, eyes bright. "Looking good, Evelyn." Evelyn laughed, a clean, unfiltered sound that startled even her. She waved back. "Feels good, too." That night she stood by the window in her red coat, holding a cup of tea and listening. No voices, no knocks, no buzzing phones. Just the hum of a house that no longer whispered secrets. But the laptop was still on the desk, still open, still paused. And she knew, eventually, she'd press play again. Not today, but soon. The microphone was too tall. Evelyn adjusted it with care, fingers steady despite the heat of the lights. The small auditorium smelled faintly of coffee and floor wax, an old community center reborn as something more than its linoleum and folding chairs. Jordan had asked her to speak at the women's group they volunteered with. Just talk about what you've learned, they'd said. About rebuilding. Evelyn had laughed at that. Rebuilding what? But now, standing here, seeing the small crowd of faces, teachers, retirees, a few young mothers balancing notebooks on their laps, she understood. She didn't bring notes, just her voice. She began softly. We confuse giving with being loved. A ripple of silence swept the room. She didn't fill it. She let it breathe. For years, she continued, I thought love was something you proved. Through service, through sacrifice, through saying yes when you should have said, this isn't mine to carry, she paused. The words didn't tremble. They landed like truth does. Plain and unspectacular, but undeniable. I thought if I gave enough, I'd earn enough. That gratitude was the same thing as closeness. That patience could fix people who only ever came to take. But all giving without boundaries does is teach people how to take without shame. Someone in the back sniffled. Evelyn didn't look up. She didn't need to. When I stopped trying to be the constant in everyone else's storm, I found something better than peace. She smiled slightly. I found quiet, my own kind of weather. There was a murmur of agreement, soft, communal, like a wave folding back on itself. And that, Evelyn said, was when I realized love isn't measured by how much of yourself you can lose without complaint. It's measured by who notices when you stop. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then someone clapped. Then another. Until the sound filled the little hall, gentle, not roaring, but sure. Evelyn nodded once, stepped back from the mic, and exhaled. The applause washed over her without drowning her. She didn't shrink from it this time. Afterward, Jordan found her near the snack table, 2 styrofoam cups of punch in hand. They handed her one. That was church, they said quietly, without the preacher. Evelyn laughed. It came from somewhere deep, almost foreign. Then I guess I finally picked the right pulpit. Jordan raised their cup. To second lives. Evelyn clinked hers against it. To the first ones we survived. Margot met her outside under the oak tree that shaded the entrance. She'd snuck in halfway through the talk. Evelyn had seen the hat bobbing in the back row. You did it, Margot said, folding her arms. You stood up there and told the truth. I did. You realize what that room was, right? Evelyn tilted her head. That, Margot said, pointing toward the door, is your family now. The ones who clap when you speak. Evelyn smiled, soft and sure. Then I guess I finally raised the right kids. Margot chuckled. Took you long enough. They hugged, tight and uncomplicated. That night, Evelyn baked her own birthday cake. She hadn't planned to, hadn't even remembered it was the day until the afternoon. But the urge arrived like instinct. Chocolate, double layered, with more frosting than reason demanded. She set it on the counter, the air thick with cocoa and buttercream, the kind of smell that made a kitchen feel safe again. No candles, no guests. Just the quiet hum of the oven cooling down and the sound of her own laughter as she licked the spoon clean. She cut a generous slice, placed it on her grandmother's china, and ate it standing at the counter. The sweetness was almost too much, and somehow perfect. Halfway through, her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. Unknown. You think the story's over. Press play, Evie. Her gaze drifted toward the desk in the next room. The laptop still sat open, that frozen frame of Arthur staring mid-word, as if waiting for her to finish his sentence. She set down the fork, wiped her hands, and started walking. Evelyn sat at her desk beneath the window, the late morning light spilling across the paper like mercy. She'd sharpened her pencil 3 times, as though precision might make this easier. Not for neatness, for control. Something about the ritual steadied her. 3 envelopes, no stamps, no return addresses, just names: Claire, Tess, Caleb. Each letter started the same way: I loved you the best I knew how. And each one ended differently. Claire's was careful, measured, restrained. A page of small, considered sentences. No accusations, just boundaries. Tess's meandered like a conversation she'd never get to have, somewhere between an elegy and a shrug. Caleb's was the shortest. Just a paragraph, quiet and final. You don't have to understand to forgive. I already do. When she finished, she stacked them neatly and pressed her palm to the top envelope. The paper was still warm from her hand. She didn't seal them, didn't sign them. Then she opened the bottom drawer of her desk and slid all 3 underneath a pack of unused thank you cards. She whispered, "That's enough," and meant it in a way that didn't bruise anymore. That afternoon, Jordan came by unannounced, the way they often did now. They carried 2 paper cups of coffee, one with cinnamon, one with oat milk, and the kind of quiet that had come to mean sanctuary more than silence. Evelyn opened the screen door with a soft smile. "You know you have a key," Jordan shrugged, handing her a cup. "I like earning my way in." They sat on the porch for a while, the wind playing in the eaves, the kind of spring afternoon where time doesn't press forward, it just unfurls. Evelyn reached into her sweater pocket, then stood and went inside for a moment. She returned with a small brass key threaded onto a fine silver chain. She held it out. Jordan blinked. "What's this?" "The safe," Evelyn said. "Just in case." Jordan frowned, but not out of suspicion. "In case of what?" "In case I can't answer the door one day, or if someone ever needs proof that I meant what I wrote." Jordan studied her face for a long moment. I'm not dying," Evelyn said gently. "Not anytime soon." They let out a slow breath. "It's not an ending," she added, closing Jordan's hand around the key. "It's an anchor, that's all." Jordan nodded. "I'll keep it safe," Evelyn smiled. "That's why it's yours." The next morning, Evelyn moved the framed photo from the hallway to the fireplace mantel. Not the old family portrait, the one with the stiff smiles and matchy-matchy clothes Arthur had insisted on. That one went into the hallway closet, face down. She replaced it with a snapshot of her and Jordan, sunlit, mid-laugh, flecks of soil on their hands from the community garden. The kind of joy that doesn't pose, it just happens. The room felt different instantly, not like a home reclaimed, like a truth finally allowed to live in plain sight. She stared at the frame a long time, not out of sentimentality, just to confirm what her body already knew. This looked right. Later that week, she drove the dollhouse to the foster care office where Jordan volunteered. It sat in the passenger seat, strapped in with the seatbelt like something living. The little shingles, the tiny porch swing, every window painted with patience. At the front desk, a young woman with tired eyes and gentle posture looked up. "Can I help you?" Evelyn nodded. "I'm not here to donate money, just this." She set the dollhouse gently on the counter. The woman blinked. "Did you build this?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "It's for someone still learning what home feels like." The woman smiled. "Someone will love it, I promise." "I hope they love it loudly," Evelyn said. And then she turned and left. No receipt, no plaque, no fanfare. Just the sun on her shoulders and the weight finally gone from her hands. That evening, Evelyn stood barefoot in the kitchen when she called Thomas. "No changes," she said, not waiting for a greeting. He chuckled. "You sure you don't want to add some dramatic flair? A little flourish for the file?" "No, let it stand," he paused. "Then I'll consider it closed." "Do," she said, and hung up. Near midnight, she updated her voicemail. Her voice was calm, low, deliberate. "You've reached Evelyn Wallace. Please don't leave messages. If it matters, say it in person." She hit save, and the new greeting echoed back once, quiet, certain. She placed the phone face down, let the room return to stillness. For a long time, Evelyn sat in the half-light, the house breathing softly around her. Then it came, a single buzz. She picked up the phone, one new video message. File name, Mauve 0422, revision DEMP4. Attached note, "If you ever love me, you'll watch this one to the end." She stared at the screen, then rose, not afraid, not ready, but willing. The card came on a Monday, sealed with a gold embossed sticker like that made it sacred. No return address, no note on the envelope, just her name, written in Claire's practiced hand, each letter spaced like it wanted to be admired. Evelyn opened it slowly, carefully, and read the first 3 lines. I've been thinking a lot about everything. I hope you know we never meant to make you feel. She stopped there, not because it hurt, because she already knew the next words. Unseen, unappreciated, misunderstood. The same chorus sung in lowercase empathy. Nothing changed, nothing owned. She closed the card, held it for a moment, then turned and walked to the kitchen trash. She dropped it in without ceremony, didn't fold it, didn't tear it, just let it land, clean. No drama, just done. In her study, Evelyn opened a brand new notebook, linen cover, no lines, the kind of paper you wrote on when you were ready to be deliberate. On the first page, in slow, even strokes, she wrote, "Today I felt no need to explain myself." She paused, then underlined no need. By noon, the house had taken on that soft silence she had come to cherish. Not absence, stillness, the kind of quiet that hummed with its own certainty. Outside, a car passed. A child shouted a name across the street. Somewhere nearby, wind chimes rang once, then stopped. She didn't look up until she heard footsteps on the porch. Jordan. They knocked. Even though they had a key. Evelyn opened the door, already smiling. Jordan held out a cup of coffee and a paperback. "New one from that author you love." Evelyn took it, fingertips brushing theirs. "You bring more gifts than my own children ever did." "Because I don't need anything back," Jordan said. They sat on the porch in silence, not awkward, not waiting, just present. Jordan read. Evelyn watched the street. The sun moved slowly over the porch rail. A butterfly landed on the edge of the planter, stayed for a moment, then lifted away again. This was the most seen she'd felt in years. She sipped her coffee and let herself feel it all. The wholeness, the safety, the freedom of not narrating your every breath to people who only listen for what they want to hear. As the afternoon stretched on, Evelyn stood. She went inside and reached for her red coat, the one that had become armor and expression all at once. She pulled it on slowly, like greeting an old friend. When she stepped outside, the sun caught the shoulders just right, casting a soft glow across her back. She walked, not to go anywhere, just to remember her own rhythm, the sound of her feet on the sidewalk, the shape of her shadow on the pavement, the way the light touched her differently now that she no longer bent herself towards someone else's needs. The trees lining her block had bloomed early, petals scattered at her feet like offerings. She stepped through them, not reverent, just aware. The street was hers again. So was the pace. When she returned home, she opened the door and stood for a long moment on the threshold. The house was still, not in mourning, not holding its breath, just waiting like she was. She didn't eat dinner, didn't need to. Instead, she lit the small rosemary candle on her desk, sat down at her laptop, and opened the file. Mav o fat tutu. Revision, MP4. Arthur's face filled the screen, older than the photo she'd framed, eyes rimmed with something she hadn't remembered him knowing. Fear. "Evie," he began. She didn't flinch at the name, not this time. "I wasn't honest. Not with the kids, not with you, not even with myself. I let them believe you were cold because it was easier than admitting I'd made you small. And when you stopped letting me, I helped them rewrite you." He blinked, looked down, cleared his throat. "There were things I should have fixed before I died. But by the time I was ready, it felt like you were already gone." She watched, still. "I didn't deserve you. I knew it the day we buried your mother and you made sandwiches for the neighbors afterward because no one else remembered. I knew it when Tess called you from a parking lot and you drove 6 hours without sleep. I knew it when you stood in court and took the blame for Caleb's mistake just to keep his record clean." His voice cracked. "I was too proud to say it. Too proud to say thank you. Too proud to say I'm sorry. So this is me saying both." He leaned closer to the camera. "And if you're seeing this, if you even bothered to press play, it means you did what I couldn't. You finished it clean. I hope you found someone who sees you. Evelyn didn't cry. She sat in the blue light of the screen and let it end. When the video cut to black, she closed the laptop without touching her face. No tears, no forgiveness, just closure. The next morning was Mother's Day. She woke early, let the house stay quiet, made coffee and fed the birds. At 9:03 a.m., her phone buzzed once. Group text, Claire, Tess, Caleb, Happy Mother's Day, love you, no names, no punctuation, no voice. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She replied, if you have questions about the estate, contact Thomas Rowe. Then she put the phone away. Not in a drawer, not on silent, just aside. She looked out the window at the world she'd chosen, at the porch she'd rebuilt, at the mantel where a new photo lived, at the dollhouse that had found a better home, at the red coat hanging ready by the door. She smiled, and for the first time in decades, she didn't need to be wished anything at all.